At this time in our culture and world history, silence is not an option. I am Matt Staver, founder and chairman of Liberty Counsel. Joining me is Matt Barber, vice president of Liberty Counsel Action. Matt, Liberty Counsel, we have created this action pack called Silence is Not an Option. It actually contains a DVD where I speak about what pastors and churches can do with regards to political action. It contains the Patriots Handbook on Political Action for Pastors and Churches, and it also contains other information. We are taking unprecedented steps to make sure that this gets out to many churches. Approximately 160,000 churches will be mailed this. You can be a part of that if you're listening and you want to help underwrite that program. We don't have all of this project completely underwritten, so we need your assistance as well. But this really is designed to encourage pastors and educate them that they can speak about biblical values, and provides the guidelines in which they can do that without confronting or getting in difficult situation with the IRS.
You know, Matt, it is so important in this day and age that that pastors get involved in these important transcendent issues that don't just affect our larger culture. It affects individuals, every single person sitting in those pews, and pastors have an absolute right to speak their mind on cultural issues. You know, the late Reverend Jerry Falwell, I think, captured the crux of the church's apathy problem, which has existed in the past. I think people are waking up. He said this: "What is wrong in America today? We preachers, and there are 340,000 of us who pastor churches, we hold the nation in our hand. And I say this to every preacher: we are going to stand accountable before God if we do not stand up and be counted." This gives pastors, I think, the information that they need so they can feel comfortable engaging in the debate of ideas and be counted.
Well, you know, it was the Great Awakening that was the fuel of the American Revolution, and without the Great Awakening, the spiritual revival, without pastors preaching from the pulpit, we would not have a Great Awakening. And so pastors can preach on biblical issues no matter the season, whether it's in political season or out of political season. You know, the two restrictions that came into the IRS code were the lobbying restriction in 1934, and then the political intervention or endorsing or opposing candidates in 1954. No church has ever lost its tax-exempt status for either lobbying or for endorsing or opposing a candidate since these restrictions were put into the IRS code. Churches are unique from other nonprofit organizations. They do not need a letter from the IRS. They are tax-exempt from the moment that they create a meeting, from the moment of conception, as you will. Whenever you have a church gathering together to meet for the very first time, as long as you look and act and operate like a church, you are tax-exempt without having to get IRS's approval. Very significant difference between churches and other nonprofit organizations that do need to apply to IRS and then eventually get a letter ruling granting them tax-exempt status. Churches do not need that. So that is significant with regards to the enforcement that the IRS has. They don't have the biggest hammer over churches like they have over other nonprofit organizations. Right. And that's why no church has ever lost its tax-exempt status for either lobbying, endorsing or opposing legislation, or endorsing or opposing candidates for political office. And in this information that we have, Silence is Not an Option, we go through all the things that pastors and churches clearly can do without even coming close to implicating the IRS rules.
And you just said it. No church has lost its tax-exempt status for being engaged in politics, not even from endorsing a candidate from the pulpit. And, you know, Matt, you know how effective you're being by the reaction of those who disagree with you. Our friends over at Americans United for Church and State, it's an anti-theist organization, Barry Lynn's group, put out, after we put out our Silence is Not an Option and indicated that we're going to be sending out this information to so many of these pastors, they reacted unsurprisingly by complaining about it in a press release and in a blog and so forth. But, you know, how many times the numbers speak for themselves.
They've not won a single case.
Not won a single case. They send out these empty, threatening letters to pastors across the United States of America saying if you say anything about anything political, you're going to lose your tax-exempt status. It's just a lie. They're a paper tiger. It hasn't happened, and they have no ammunition to back up their empty claims. So understandably, they're screaming from the rooftops that Liberty Counsel is, so that they're trying to chill the First Amendment. They're trying to keep.
Well, all they have is smoke and mirrors. They don't have substance. And when we look at what we have in our information, we have the record going for us. And in fact, let's start off with what pastors and churches can do. In fact, although it says that you cannot endorse or oppose candidates, that is referencing the church as a corporate entity. But what pastors and churches can clearly do is you can register people to vote. You don't tell them to register for one particular party, you just encourage them to register. I would also approach voting not as a political act, but as a prophetic witness to the community, as a talent that God has given us. As we are and as we teach on Sunday, we must be and act on Tuesday when we go to the ballot box. There is no disconnect between Sunday and Tuesday. And so it is a prophetic act. It is a talent that God will hold us accountable for. For example, if you oppose abortion, how can you either not vote or vote for someone who will be your agent to actually take the life of an unborn child? If you do that, by extension, you are doing that, and I think God will hold you accountable for those particular matters. I think life is the preeminent right, and that's a biblical value. But certainly you can encourage people to register. You can bring a voter registrar to your church. You can have these paper applications that people can fill out, and they can then apply to get a voter registration in their mail, and you can encourage people to vote. Dr. Falwell used to do that a lot at Thomas Road Baptist Church. You've got to be registered to vote, and remember, voting registration for the presidential election closes in most states or most places for other positions as well, 30 days before the election. So you've got to get moving quickly. You only have a short time left to register people to vote.
Well, and it's something else pastors can do. They can educate. There are voter guides available. Liberty Counsel has voter guides on the two different party platforms. They can educate their congregants about where the parties stand in their platforms,
or where the
issues,
candidates
or
stand.
where the candidates stand.
And you can
specifically
preach, for example, on biblical values like life as an example, marriage, and any other matter that the Bible touches. It touches everything. And then you can also then pass out voter guides for the particular candidates at issue in terms of where they stand, and you can encourage people to vote their biblical values.
To vote biblical values. So that is not even getting up close to the edge on what pastors can do. And unfortunately, a lot of pastors have bought into this disinformation that we hear in the media and elsewhere, that pastors are placing their C3 status at risk. It's simply not the case, Matt. Churches don't even have to have a 501c3, a letter of tax exemption. They're just automatically tax exempt by virtue of being a church, correct?
And yeah, that's right. And there's no reason, it's absolutely indefensible for someone to say, I'm concerned about my tax status, therefore I'm not going to say anything. That is a cop-out. I think the issue is a bigger one, and that is, are you really going to speak about something that somebody may disagree with, that you may encourage people to vote, and other people might say you shouldn't be doing that? It's a bigger issue, and that, I think, for pastors and people in the pulpit, people in the church need to encourage their pastors to speak out boldly. Pastors, I believe, have a duty to do so, and God will hold pastors accountable. As someone who was a pastor before going to law school, I appreciate the stresses that pastors are under and the competing issues that they have to deal with. But pastors are watchmen on the wall and guardians of the culture. And God, when you are silent, will hold each one of us, including pastors, accountable. James 3 says, do not let many of you become teachers, because you will be judged by a more strict standard. Pastors are teachers, and if they are silent when it is time to speak up, God will ultimately hold them accountable. So I encourage pastors to speak up boldly on these and many other issues.
We're commanded to be salt and light, pastors especially. Now's a chance to do so.
Go to Liberty Counsel's website and ask for the Silence is Not an Option action pack. It includes a DVD that you can watch or send out to others. It also includes the Patriots Handbook on Pastors and Political Action, the Political Action for Pastors and Churches, and it also contains other information as well. We have information on our website, lc.org. It has bulletin inserts. If you go to the front page of the Liberty Counsel website, lc.org, click on Churches and Nonprofits, and there you'll have all kinds of information that you can pass out. And again, order the action pack. The Silence is Not an Option action pack. Send it to your churches. We're sending it to about 160,000 churches in the country. Go to Liberty Counsel's website, lc.org, or call 1-800-671-1776. Remember to support Liberty Counsel at this time of the year with your contributions and your prayer.